Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Welcome, all you citizens of the world. Once again, it's Michael James with another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This one is being recorded on Monday, February 26th for the week of March 2nd. And we are really honored to have a longtime co-host and sometimes still a co-host like today, and producer Katy Hogan. Good morning to you, Katy.
Good morning, Michael.
Thank you for joining me. Good to be having a little time with you here on the air, on the TV, wherever people get to see it. A little bit later, we're going to have Mariana Spiropoulos, and she is running for the clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County. And before that, you and I are going to talk about a number of things. I'd like to start off with a little update on something we've been reporting on, and that is our neighbors down on Loyola Avenue. That would be the people at the Roman Susan Gallery. Nathan Smith was recently on the show, and Roberta Schmatz, who was on the show quite a long time ago, but she runs Archie's Cafe. And as many of you, particularly in Rogers Park, know, Loyola University has bought the property where they and a number of tenants live, and is going to tear it down and develop it. So I'm going to give a little update on what I heard from both of them. Nathan Smith thanked us for staying on the case. He says the building at 1234 Loyola has been recently purchased by Loyola University. There's an article this week in Block Club Chicago by Kaylee Padar. And the key things from those are that the 49th Ward office of Maria Hadden, our alderwoman, has asked Loyola to extend leases for as long as possible and help businesses and residents relocate. Also, Loyola spokesperson Matt McDermott said the redevelopment of the building will be lengthy, years long, but the university plans to work with tenants to help them find affordable housing in the neighborhood. And they go on to talk about the state senator Mike Simmons hopes to host a meeting with Alderwoman Maria Hadden, where residents and businesses will be able to do a little talking about it. And then Roberta reported to me that though Loyola continues to say they will work with residents and businesses, as far as she knows, Loyola has not yet reached out to anyone. And she reported that Saturday, when many of you will be listening to the show, there is a teach-in at 2 p.m., meeting in front of the building itself, and it's being led by a young activist from Jones High School. They plan to talk about the ongoing situation and Loyola's impact on the community. That's all the information I have. Do you have anything to add to that, Katy?
I don't.
It's a neat little street. It's behind the L to the west of the tracks.
My first apartment as a Mundelein student was right around the corner from that on Lakewood. I walked that block hundreds of times. And the major changes on that block over the years have been whenever Loyola bought up a parcel, if you remember, we used to go to the glass company there to get our glassware.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For the Heartland Cafe back in the day.
Back in the day, we went and bought cartons of glasses, and you always liked to refer back to the fact your father worked for Libby Glass. Or somebody in your family.
No. My old college girlfriend father worked for the glass company. Okay. My dad's family was Libby Meat and Libby Corned Beef.
Right. That's okay. We don't have to know all those details. Anyway, that building, which was a little industrial complex with parking in front, but not a big building. They just supplied small businesses. That building was raised, and it's just now a parking lot, but not available to the public. It seems like Loyola vehicles are there. I'm not really sure who all is allowed to use that parking lot the lot right across from it, which was at one time an apartment building, or maybe a couple of them. And then it was a garden run by Waldorf School, actually a lovely garden that their students put together and that kept up for years. Loyola bought that lot, and it is nothing again. It's a blank lot. Those two lots are across the street and next door to the building that you're referring to. And one of the issues people have is just that. While Loyola and many other big schools and other big neighbors in various city neighborhoods, be it a sports complex or a university or whatever, have their own plans for development and expansion, it's the community immediately around it on the ground that feels the effects, that mourns the loss of familiar landmarks or places for gathering. In this particular case, really great, small, unique places for gathering that are beloved, which we can relate to. And then there's no real accountability or timeline on what appears in their stead. So it's a age-old issue. The big developers, the big money guys, and the guys with the big boots in the neighborhood, sort of running roughshod, as people see it, over their limited, special places.
Well, you and I are both the witnesses to great transformations in Rogers Park, and it's always been a place that did have affordable housing, and there's less and less of that. And in this building, there's about 36 apartments additional to the stores. And what's going to happen to them if Loyola doesn't need it for a while? We're going to keep people posted on this. And, we've been talking about it off and on for the past month, and we will keep you posted. I'm going to jump to El Paso, Texas, where big jump, but we do have some listeners and viewers down there. And, I go down regularly for this basketball in the Barrio program, which is right on the border. And one of the social service agencies there is Annunciation House. And I've got photographs of that and some murals on the wall. They've been helping migrants big time. People who follow the news know that El Paso is a crossing point from Juarez. A lot of people, a lot of action. The reactionary governor of Texas and his attorney general, a guy named Paxton, have been terrible on the migrant issues, and of course, sending a lot of them to the north. I got this little bit of news that the attorney general, Paxton, intends to shut down the El Paso Migrant Aid nonprofit, and other humanitarian organizations could be next. Can
he do that?
Well, we'll see what he can do. He was, they just elected him, or they voted to keep him in office after he was caught doing some nefarious things. The Ruben Garcia, who runs, he's the director, he responded to Ken Paxton. He said he threatened to revoke the organization's license to operate the state and asked to inspect its records. Human rights activists are chanting, "We are a house," in solidarity with the Catholic nonprofit. It's been there for decades, done a lot of humanitarian aid. It's a faith-based organization. It's worked with the U.S. Border Patrol, with the Immigration and Custom Enforcement, and Department of Homeland Security to take in thousands of people. So Paxton, on the other hand, calls it human smuggling and operating a stash house. So there's a great divide on all these issues, and I think these are the bad guys. We're going to take a little peek at the war in the Middle East. It's an ongoing tragedy, and our friend Mike Klonsky, who does have a show on Lumpen Radio on Friday mornings, he reported in an email On day 140 of Israel's war on Gaza, the death toll has risen to 29,092. About two-thirds of them are women and children. More than 69,000 Palestinians have been wounded. Overwhelmingly, the territory's hospitals, less than half of which are even partially functioning, are, just not really working. And as you know, and some people have already seen the news, yesterday would be Sunday from when we're recording. In Washington, D.C., in front of the Israeli embassy, a U.S. Air Force member died after setting himself on fire outside the embassy. His fellow's name is Aaron Bushnell. He was 25. He declared he will no longer be complicit in genocide before he set himself on fire. It's sad, but it brings back the Vietnam War when stuff like this was going on.
Yeah, I remember the effect that the Buddhist monks setting themselves alight had on the ramping up of the anti-war fervor around the world, because it was such a shocking statement of like this fellow. And it's really shocking to U.S. citizens, I think, or our fellow U.S. Americans, whether citizens or not, to have somebody from the military make such a statement. It's shocking and sad. I don't know about you, but yesterday we also witnessed. We had some demonstrators for a ceasefire in Gaza at a local political event, which may come up later in your show because Mariana Spiropoulos was a guest at the Democratic Party of Evanston's presenting the slate event. And interestingly, Michael, two of our best buddies were in amongst the demonstrators. That was former Heartland employees and moms of Heartland babies.
Yeah,
both of
a lot of them.
Both of whom I gave big hugs to, despite the fact I was there to help coordinate produce the event. And so it's a pretty hard issue for all of us right now around the world. We feel helpless in the face of some pretty raggedy assault on people with no defense. And I mean, how the UDF forces feel they're going to knock out Hamas by murdering the entire population, or just laying waste to whatever society they had and forcing them all into poverty and hunger. And is that not going to create more antipathy?
It definitely has. I mean, the number of demonstrations pro-Palestinian and raising all these issues is just increasing, tenfold over and over, more and more. Chicago, yesterday, streets were blocked off. When we say yesterday, we're recording a days early. It's really put the president in a rough position in the election, how to handle it. Netanyahu does not seem to be yielding in any way to all the threats from our government. So it's really serious, and we'll be talking more about it. I have one more thing I'm going to bring up before we move over and really talk about Bring Chicago Home and the latest developments in that. What I would like to share is that The Guardian has reported that Alexei Navalny, who was murdered by Putin, they're claiming that Putin had Navalny killed to thwart a prisoner swap. Allies claim that the Russian leader accused of ordering Navalny's death to stop him being exchanged for FSB. I'm not sure what that is. Hitmen serving a life sentence in Germany. So not only are we sad about his killing, I know his body was finally released to his mother, even though they were trying to say she could not have a public ceremony after his death. I don't know. It's just like, it's really sad. Let's flip this a little bit, Katie, and come back home and talk a little bit about Bring Chicago Home. It's on the ballot, we hope. Tell
No,
us what's
it's
going
on the ballot. It is on the
Okay.
ballot. Yeah.
Fill us in a little bit on this whole deal.
So last Friday, which when this show airs will be a week, and actually by the time this show airs, it may be there may be a different story happening, but I doubt it. The legal wheels, the way being what they are, a judge, Cook County judge, agreed with the real estate organization that brought the suit against the referendum called Bring Chicago Home on a couple bases. Really, it's more on more related to form, not function, not substance. They said that the referendum was poorly written and confounded because it both raises the real estate transfer tax and lowers it in the same referendum. It's a lot of arcane stuff, as ever, when you dig deep into both policy and judicial decisions about policy. But the bigger question and the bigger piece about this is that people have been being told by those same interests that it is a increase in real estate tax. It is not. That's the biggest thing people have to understand, because that sounds alarms for everyone. You yourself are a homeowner. You know that real estate tax is a huge deal to come up with every year. This is not an increase in that. It is a real estate transfer tax, a one-time paid tax that we all pay if we're lucky enough to buy a piece of property, whether it's a condo, a co-op like me, or a house. You pay a transfer tax. And this piece of legislation, this referendum proposes an increase in that transfer tax on pieces of property, whether they're commercial or domestic, I'll call it, over $1 million. And at the same time, it decreases that same transfer tax on transactions less than $1 million. That particular piece seems to be the sticking point on why the judge felt it could get tossed. So the other piece of that is that entire raise of the RETT, real estate transfer tax, is about developing a dedicated fund to address homelessness and affordable housing and the issues surrounding homelessness. Why? Because we've had a growing homeless population in Chicago. Everyone who lives here knows it. Before the 80s, we never saw people camped out on the street or in the parks, almost never. And since the mid 80s on, increasingly, we have a population right now estimated to be over 60,000 homeless people in Chicago. We need to address that, and without going into funds that are meant to do other things for the city. So robbing Peter to pay Paul has not worked, obviously. If we walk to our grocery store, there will be people asking us for money every step of the way on Morse Avenue. This Bring Chicago Home was meant to address the lack of a dedicated fund to address those problems, as well as at the same time put some emphasis and some teeth into and support into developing and supporting affordable housing, which is, in fact, been disappearing in Chicago in a scary rate for the last 20 years. What's at risk here is seeing the inequity grow between the very, very wealthy and what they can afford and what they can buy as far as housing goes, and the rest of us. People are voting for it right now. Those of us who have been actively supporting it are continuing to support it. And we've got people going door to door and making phone calls, encouraging folks to continue to vote for it while it makes its way through the courts which may overturn what was decided last Friday. So that's that.
Katy, you've been really involved with this, as has Network 49 and many others around the city. And I know you're still doing phone banks, and there's some door knocking. Are you still looking for recruits? And
Always.
do you want to share some
Always.
information about how people can become
Yes.
involved?
Yeah, they can go to bringchicagohome.org, which has is connected with Mobilize, which is a way to sign up to do something in your own neighborhood. In our neighborhood, like you said, the Network 49 and the 49th Ward Dems have been running both canvases and phone banks for about 6 or 8 weeks at this point. Really tremendous volunteers. We could use more in the final 3 weeks of this campaign, particularly because of the confusion about the court case, and to let people know they should continue to vote what they want, because whether or not those votes get publicized at the end of the day, we will see that a huge percentage of the city wants to support this, as that's what our phoning and door knocking tell us.
Well, you were in on a phone call with activists who are involved in this. Is there anything from that you would like to share when the word came down from the judge's decision?
What was said by our legal team was, hold fast, continue to do what you've been doing until we see what the appeal results in. Some good advice in terms of let's not trash the judicial member who made the decision, even though she did an unusual thing of not explaining her decision. She handed it out and then left the courtroom. I'm not sure if that's what he's afraid of, or if she was afraid of, kickback, because there are an awful lot of people who are working really hard for this. What I should say is, this is something that came from the Coalition for Chicago Home, the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, that has been dealing on the front lines of this problem for decades. It is not Brandon Johnson's piece of legislation. It is a coalition of folks who have been on the front lines dealing with homelessness and looking at other cities as to how they are addressing it. This same type of legislation dealing with the real estate transfer tax has passed and is in operation in cities like San Francisco, LA, New York. And in LA in particular, I read they had to tweak it after they passed it, but it's in operation. So it's not that radical. It's something that's needed. And people should not believe a small handful of business owners who would rather pay large legal fees than address and solve a real problem.
Well, I think it's been great to work. I know that the organization we're both part of, Network 49, has been involved, and you are involved. And there are, I found online, both Maria Haddon had a lot of comments about the court decision, as did our state rep, Kelly Cassidy. And it's something that seems to be picking up a lot of momentum. People in support of it, organizations coming out for it. And then we get this decision by the judge, unexplained, and we're not sure where it'll go. There's going to be an appeal. I want to thank you for coming on with your clear thinking on a lot of issues, Katy, and sharing just a little bit of time with us. It's always an honor to have you back on the show. And I want to just thank you publicly.